Welcome into the latest episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Chris Smith, and as always, I am joined by Coach Smith, head coach of Carolina Softball. Coach, how are we doing today?
Doing okay. Doing all right. Getting ready for our game against East Carolina.
Yeah, no, thanks for. I know today's not Monday. We usually do our Coach's Corner on Monday, so we apologize to everybody that was expecting it Monday night. But here we are on Tuesday, and it's a little bit earlier today, right before Coach and the team get on the bus to travel back to not back to, but I guess back. I'm saying back to because I'm actually from Greenville, so that's kind of like stuck in my head when I'm always going home to see my parents. But as y'all get ready to head to Greenville, how's the team doing right now? As coming off the Duke series, able to grab one there. How's the team and how are you doing?
Doing what we practiced yesterday to prepare for today. And typically Monday's a day off for us. So, yesterday, a little bit fatigued, but, have to get prepared for today and the challenge we're going to have in Greenville. Disappointed with Sunday's game against Duke. And it was an emotional weekend, right? Senior weekend, had big crowds, our, rival games. It was an emotional weekend, but yesterday we were able to get out, great weather, get out and play a little bit of softball to prepare for today.
Yeah, but the team's gonna have to get used to it really quick. It's that North Carolina weather. You kind of skip some of those fall and spring feelings, right? And it gets hot rather quickly, which I believe, as today is supposed to be rather hot, right?
Yeah. And yesterday was too. So yeah, we don't mind it though. It's better than playing in the cold. So we're ready for the heat.
Yeah, you got that right. Well, let's go ahead and, if it's okay with you, let's go ahead and jump into our Duke recap here. Let's go ahead and talk about, just game one right from the jump. Duke jumped out to a big early lead there in game one. How much did that first inning set the tone for the rest of that game?
Well, I'd like to say that, we felt really confident after that first inning, but honestly, that first inning was tough, right? That's tough. It's hard when you come out in the first inning and you're confident in what you're doing. You've had a really good stretch of games, Kenna has looked really strong in her outings lately, and it's hard to come out that first inning and for that to be the way it starts. We got punched in the gut, and I think that. Our approach in the circle wasn't what it needed to be. It wasn't as confident as I had hoped it would be after the recent outings that we have had and that Kenna has had. But credit to the team, that 5 runs, tough to swallow first inning, took us a little bit, but we started to have some life offensively and started to make some things happen, which was good to see. But we just dug ourselves too big of a hole in terms of our pitching in that first inning. It was just really difficult to dig out of that hole against such a talented Duke team.
Yeah, very talented Duke team. And so many times we've talked about, it seems like, when the team gets down early, they tend to stray away from the offensive strategy that the coaching staff has set for them. But it seems like they stayed, from my point of view, it seems like they stayed pretty locked into that. Y'all, as y'all showed fight all on the offensive side of the ball with multiple home runs. What was that like about the response despite the defeat there in game one?
Yeah, that was a great adjustment that our offense made. It got down early and, got down pretty big. And instead of panicking and going up and having selfish at bats where we're trying to do too much, we just kind of settled in and went back to, what our game plan is, what we need to do to be successful, working together, working pitchers, locking in on the certain pitch we're looking for. And I felt like we did a really good job of that. So the big positive of that game was the fact that, here we are, you get down early. In the past, we might have panicked a little bit offensively and kind of gone off script, but instead we trusted what we were going to do. And it ended up working, right? We were able to put some runs up and gain some momentum going into day 2, just not enough to overcome the deficit.
Right. Well, going to game 2, congratulations on the win there, and we're going to talk about, the meaning of that win here in a little bit. But, you battled throughout that whole game and were able to get a win over a very quality Duke team that's a ranked team as well. What did that say about your team's resilient, being able to bounce back after game 1?
Well, it says a lot about, our team's fight and resilience. And I think, one of the things that we've struggled with is the belief and the confidence against those ranked opponents. And, I think after our offensive push on Friday, that next morning we talked about, where we went wrong and what we have to fix. And, the way we came out in that game is not acceptable. We can't do that. We cannot continue to come out against quality teams and have fear in the first inning. We have to come in believing we can win. Everything we showed offensively showed our team that we can beat this team. And it was, that was kind of our push on Saturday before the game, is to walk in there and believe. And what we need from the beginning is a good start from our pitcher. We need our pitcher to go out there and give us a good start and give us a chance and not put us in a hole that we have to dig out of. And I was really proud of how Carly came out and was able to do that for us. Very calm. And it wasn't easy. It's not easy to face Duke's offense, but she went out there confident. She had her defense to back her up, and she went out there and she gave us a chance. And, that to me set the tone to our entire team that, okay, now we believe we can do this. Now we believe if we continue the momentum from our offensive performance yesterday, we can beat Duke, and we can beat any team when we, when we believe in ourselves and we stick to our plan. And I felt like the tone she set and just the way she allowed us to be confident in what we were doing and not have to feel so much pressure and feel like we're having to dig out of this hole. I thought that made all the difference in the world, and just really proud of how our team came back. Had no clue Carolina hadn't beaten Duke since 2019. I had no idea that was a thing. I had no idea that was going to be the 100th win since I had been here, and it was awesome for that to happen. All of the things and the way it happened, it was great to see. But just proud of the team and how they bounced back and came out, specifically the pitching in that game.
Well, talk to me. I do appreciate this approach from you, Coach. I know that you're very player first, and there's not much that you like to talk about when it comes to your achievements, but there are, two achievements there that you just mentioned, right? One for the team and then one for you individually, right? The first win over Duke since 2019. That's a program achievement. What does that mean for the tone that you're setting here culturally at Carolina? And then the second question there is more focused on you, if that's okay, is that the 100th win, and congratulations, Coach. That's a massive milestone to do in such a short time. What made that moment so special up there with a record crowd in attendance?
Yeah, we'll talk about the first win against Duke since 2019, and I'm Tar Heel born, so right. For me that just it irks me that we hadn't beat them since 2019. Yeah, and I think honestly, what we're trying to do here is make it to where those things that's not a thing anymore. At the end of the day, I give a ton of credit to Duke and Marissa Young and what she's done there. She started the program there, and what a tremendous job she has done putting Duke on the map. hosted regionals, been to the World Series. And unfortunately we're trying to play catch up, and that's something that I don't like. I don't like how that feels. I don't like how that sounds. I don't like that at all, and our goal here is to change that. Our goal is to get to where we are every year, right up there with Duke and what they're doing, and I think even last year we had the program's first win over Clemson ever. Clemson's a new program. That to me, I had no idea that was a thing either. And we beat them. And Alex told me, hey, that's Carolina's first win ever over Clemson. And at the end of the day, I'm here to fix that. I'm here to make sure that that we're competing to win every single year. And we've got a ways to go. And we're just starting this process and laying this foundation and building little by little. But, my goal is to get it to where, we're not having droughts of 7 years to where we're not beating people and where we're able to compete and compete at a national level. So, it's a big milestone, but honestly, it's unfortunate that is a milestone, right? And we're hoping that, and not just hoping, we're working towards making it where it won't be that way as we move forward.
Yeah, well, Coach, congratulations on those, two achievements there. Game 3, it seemed like things, got away from the team, rather quickly. talk to me a little bit about that. In the finale, where did you feel like the game, got away from you?
Well, the game two, Carly Maxton gave us a good start, and then Kendall Frost came in and really gritted it out to the end to get that win. And we went with her to start game three. We felt like she competed well on Saturday, and we felt like she was going to give us a really good chance to have a good start, so our offense could punch first and we could set a tone. Unfortunately, our offense didn't quite get the job done on Sunday. I mean, obviously, we gave up some runs late, and the score, looks a little more lopsided than it could have been. Kendall did a phenomenal job starting that game, and offensively, we just we were never able to get into a groove. We unfortunately, swinging at bad pitches, didn't stick with our game plan, got a little antsy, tried to force a few too many things in the box, and ended up not having the offensive performance that we're capable of. And then Duke's offense got to our pitching middle into the game, so you can only hold them off for so long. We've got to punch, and we've got to put some runs up to be able to set a tone, and we didn't do that. So, felt like we got a good start from Kendall, just offensively couldn't get it going, never could get it going offensively. That's unfortunate because we know we're better than that offensively. And we worked really hard yesterday to get back to how we do things in preparation for a tough test tonight.
Yeah. Remind me, Coach, Lily Parrish came into that game for a short amount of time, right, Coach? In game three. She's a very talented pitcher, also a very young pitcher that's continuing to grow. She's had an amazing outings, earlier in the year. When she comes in a big moment like that and doesn't perform the way we know that she can, and the way that she wants to, nobody wants to perform for her more than herself, right?
Right.
What do you say to a young pitcher like that to make sure their confidence isn't shaken? Because you still got a long way to go in this season with some tough matchups coming up. And we're going to talk about that here shortly. What do you say to a pitcher like Lily Parrish in a moment like that when things don't quite go her way very quickly to make sure she keeps that confidence?
Well, I mean, I think first you have to figure out why, where were the deficiencies and what can we do about them, and I think that first Duke is a talented offense. So, that it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy going in and facing Duke. It's not going to be easy going in and facing most of the teams that we play, and at the end of the day, you have to look at where we went wrong or what wasn't working. For Lily, it's about getting ahead and being able to use her stuff and being precise with what she's doing. And I think Lily, when she's able to get ahead and she's able to use all of her tools, I think she's a much more effective pitcher. You get behind on batters, and when you get behind on really good hitters, that's just a difficult way to live. And, she's not able to use all the tools that she has when she does that. And she becomes probably a little too careful, trying to make sure that she's throwing strikes as opposed to throwing quality pitches. And when you do that against an offense like Duke, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So, but the other thing too, is you just got to keep grinding and keep working. And, you really have to have a short memory, and that's hard to do, especially as disappointed as you are. As she's a competitor and she's out there fighting and wanting to do well for her team. And when it doesn't go the way you want it to, it's really easy to carry that with you and to continue to think about that as you move forward. And, we challenge them to not do that, to learn from it and then to move on from it and to make adjustments. And in the bullpen yesterday, work on refining some things and getting prepared to compete the next time you go out. And, you got to learn and you got to move forward. And that's the way that we treat all of our players, regardless if it's pitching, defense, offense. We teach through it. You got to move on from it.
There we go. I was muted. Rookie mistake there. I wanted to ask you, Coach, about Reese Outlaw. Of course, she had that amazing catch, last week against, in last weekend against NC State. It seems like the on the defensive side of things, within the infield, things have stabilized. Can you talk a little bit about getting Reese Outlaw back there at the shortstop position and what that's meant for your defense?
Yeah, it felt she had a really strong weekend defensively. She got a lot of action and she was able to make all of the plays, was really steady. And, that's an important piece. And I think her and Sydney Horton both are steady shortstops for us. And they both have done a really good job. Sid is returning from an injury, so she'll be back in the fold here pretty soon. But Reese stepping in and just being solid and being reliable. And I talk about that a lot with our defensive players, specifically in the infield. We need reliability. We need to know that when you go out there, you're going to make all of the routine plays. You're going to be able to handle all of the coverages that we have, and you're going to be where you need to be. And she came in and was really steady for us, made that amazing catch against State, and then this weekend just was solid and made every single play, which is what we need. We need that from a shortstop, and she was able to do that this weekend.
Yeah, you're definitely right, of course, that she got a lot of action. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there Friday and Saturday doing to be in Chicago, but I was there Sunday, and man, it was like one after another right there, shortstop, boom, bam, and she was making some great plays. So it's really good to see her get back that they're in the outfield or infield. Coach, I want to ask you, as we transition to the our preview for ECU, which is later today, right? Kendall Frost, right, came from East Carolina, and y'all are gonna be making your trip there today. Carly and Tarp, make another visit back, going to NC State. Last weekend. Is there a conversation that you have, with those types of players that are, going to be visiting, or their former team coming to visit you prior to that game, or do you kind of just let them figure that out?
No, I mean, we talk about it. I want to hear how they feel about it. And I think it's good for them to share their thoughts. It's not a sign of weakness if it makes you a little nervous, or if you feel some sort of way about it. I mean, that's tough. These are places that these people called home, and they were excited about it at one point, and competed with that jersey on, and gave a lot to those places however long they were there for. So yeah, we definitely talk about it, ask how they're feeling about it, and kind of talk to them about an approach, trying to stay locked in, kind of tunnel vision. It's hard to do, but really focus in on what you are doing and the team you're on now, and try to have tunnel vision and take the emotion out of it, which is not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do at all. And us as coaches, we have to do it too. We have Erin Parker transferred to East Carolina from here, and we love Erin. We had 2 great years with her. And, so that's a hard thing for us too, when we go back and we see someone that we poured into and that we, love over in the other dugout. So not an easy thing, but, it's a part of college athletics now, right? It's a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to change anytime soon. And we're going to continue to have players come in here, and we're going to play their past teams, and we're going to continue to have players leave, and we're going to play them again. And so it's something that we talk about. We don't ignore it. We don't just brush it under the rug. We want to hear how we're feeling about it. We want to get those things out there, and we want to have a game plan going into it, understanding that it's not easy, but it's part of it. And we just have to accept it and focus completely on the task at hand and have tunnel vision.
Right. That's good to hear. I like that you like to know how they're feeling there. Coach, only 2 questions here for, your ECU matchup, which is taking place tonight in Greenville. As you head on the road for a midweek matchup against East Carolina, what are some of the key areas that you want to see from your team coming off a very emotional Duke series?
Well, we have to have full focus on East Carolina. So we can't look ahead, and we can't, live in what we just did. So we have to be fully focused on ECU. And I really want to see us make those adjustments offensively that we struggled with on Sunday. I want to see us get back to working together as an offense, being consistent with our approach, and regardless of what happens with their offense, or what the score is, or what the runs are, it doesn't matter. I want us to stay consistent with our approach offensively. We are one of the best offenses in the country. We need to be that no matter what. We need to stick with our identity and be confident in that, and trust that regardless of situation, regardless of score. And I want to see that tonight. we know we're going to get East Carolina's best game. We know it. Last year we beat them here. It was extra innings. It was hard fought. The previous year they beat us. And in fact, last year when we beat them, Carolina hadn't beat East Carolina since 2019, I believe. So East Carolina is going to give us their best shot. They're a talented team. It's going to be a challenge. And if we're not fully focused on it, we're going to be in trouble. So we're going to have to really lock in and make those offensive adjustments that we need to make.
Well, Coach, I'm going to scratch our second question because you went ahead and answered it, about, how do you stay sharp and focus with the rest of the AC with a tough FSU matchup coming up this weekend on the road there. So I'm going to add in an extra, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Something that we usually talk about, right? What are some, when you look at, film on East Carolina, what's some things that you notice from this team? If I'm watching tonight as a fan, right? What's potentially some names that I need to watch out for when it comes to East Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, they have a pitcher, their number one pitcher, who I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name. But you look it up and you'll know why I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I don't want to disrespect her name, but she has thrown over 100 innings. She has been their workhorse. She's thrown the lion's share of their innings. She's had success. She does a really good job of moving the ball around, has good command over her pitches. They played State last week. She did a really good job against their offense. So I think anytime you're facing a pitcher that has thrown that many innings, that is used to carrying the workload, that has that confidence, you're in for a challenge. And we have to make sure we're locking in on our game plan. And we're really particular about the pitches that we are swinging at. She has good command, and she also is good at stretching the zone to try to get hitters to try to push their zone and swing at pitches that they wouldn't normally swing at. So we have to be really disciplined in what we're doing. And then, here's the thing about ECU. When you look at their numbers, none of them jump out at you. And I wouldn't say they're a huge power team. I wouldn't say they're a huge speed team. What I'll tell you about them is no matter what their numbers show, they're going to put up runs. They're going to be aggressive on the bases against us. They're going to try to push things, and they're going to try to put pressure on us. They do that every time that they play. When you watch them, they're scrappy. They're going to fight no matter what. They're relentless in what they do. And every time we've played them, it's been a dogfight, and I expect it to be the same. They're well coached. I have coached against their coach, Shane Winkler, for a long time. He does a phenomenal job with every program that he's coached. And they love playing Carolina. They love the challenge of playing the Tar Heels, and we know we're going to get their best shot.
Coach, side question. Do you usually see the ace from a team in a midweek matchup?
Yeah, we normally do. And we hope we do. We want to see their best, so we are prepared for what's coming on the weekend. And, I fully anticipate we'll see their best tonight. And that's a good thing. We want, and East Carolina's a top 100 team. That's a quality opponent that we're playing. And, we want to see their best. So we continue to play great competition, coming from Duke. Having the challenge of playing East Carolina is a great thing as we continue through conference play. Right.
Coach, sorry about that. While ago, I got a sick kiddo home, and she needed a bag of popcorn to open sauce.
I don't blame her. We should do that. We should have snacks while we're doing this.
I know, right? Snacks with Coach.
Yeah.
Snack, not the kids, but a Ghost energy drink with Coach.
Yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, that'll come on the bus ride to East Carolina.
I did get to see the cup holder last week when I was there. I actually looked for it.
Yep, it's there.
I don't know. It feels like it needs is it a Carolina blue? It feels like it's a little darker.
Well, it's a little bright. It's not royal blue. It's a little brighter blue. It's more like a Carolina Panthers blue. That was the only one I could find. But it's not a cup holder. It's a ghost holder. It only holds ghosts. Nothing else goes in there.
So it's like, what is it specifically made for ghosts, or you just saying that it's a
no?
Ghost
I just
holder?
say that. I just say
okay.
That.
Well, I know Alex is listening on the back end, so maybe that's a gift that we could get Coach, because I'm sure you can get those custom made with names on them and stuff. But anyway, nothing like having a little side conversation always about the ghost holder there. Well, Coach, let's go ahead and talk about FSU. big time road series coming up, right off being away as well, tonight against East Carolina. You got a game Friday at 6, Saturday at 3, and Sunday at 12. Florida State comes into this, depending on their midweek matchup, but at the time of recording this episode, is 36-7. But they're also coming off being swept by Stanford, which was quite surprising, from the outside looking in. How do you evaluate a team like that? Does it change anything on your approach?
Oh, no. I mean, Florida State's one of the best teams in the country. And, they had a tough weekend against Stanford. But, Stanford's a tough team. They're a top 25 team. And a lot of people expected Stanford to be a top 10 team at the start of the season. They had a little rough patch, and they've figured it out. But no, Florida State is a powerhouse. They always have been. We're excited to go down there and play. Tallahassee's a tough place to play too. They have great fan support. They have an amazing stadium. The atmosphere is going to be crazy. And it's going to be challenging, but again, that's why we love being in the ACC. We get to play the best teams and get to compete against the best, and we're excited for it.
What challenges does Florida State, present to your team that are potentially a little bit different than Duke?
Their pitching is going to be a lot stronger than Duke's. I think offensively, Duke has an amazing offense, and so does Florida State. I think the difference between the two is Florida State has elite pitching. Duke's pitching has been a little up and down so far this season. Wouldn't say that's their strength. Florida State's pitching staff is really, really strong, and not just one pitcher. I think Duke has Cassidy Curd, who is their number one by quite a bit. Florida State has a staff of number ones, which is going to make it really difficult because every pitcher you're going to see is capable of being a number one. And that's kind of how they have played the last several years, is having a staff mentality of talented pitchers where there's no let up. Whenever they make a pitching change, you've got pretty much another number one coming in. Right.
And Coach, just off the top of your head, if you know that's okay. If you don't know, that's okay. Do you by chance know that, their top pitchers, were they brought in through the transfer portal, or is that something they've developed over time?
I think a little bit of both. I think, Florida State has used the transfer portal, has a couple pitchers from the transfer portal, and has in the past. Honestly, they have a freshman class that's probably the best in the country, and they're relying on them quite a bit. So they've done a good job of bringing in players, been able to keep good players and develop them. So their transfer portal usage is probably not as much as a lot of other places, but they have a little. I think that year in and year out, they're going to be a quality team with their freshmen and any transfers they get. But honestly, a little bit of a mix, but probably more of developing the talent as opposed to the transfer portal.
Right, Coach. And if it's okay, I'm gonna scratch I've done a little bit of a road wind here through this episode. Hopefully I'm not making Alex too nervous, changing some of the questions, but this is a big time series, right? There's no sugarcoating that going to FSU. I know I ask this question sometimes, but how do you keep? I know that the players, right, are going to feel that pressure, right? Taking that trip to FSU, tough environment, great stadium. What are you telling your players, right? That's potentially is there anything different, right, going into a situation like this? Definitely when, you're one of the top offenses in the country going to face one of the top pitching staffs in the country.
Yeah, well, I think we have to carry, confidence from beating Duke this weekend forward. I think we finally were able to push aside that fear and that maybe a little trepidation, or not, weren't as maybe the doubt, right? Push aside that doubt and really show that we can compete to beat these ranked teams. And I think we need to carry that into this weekend. It doesn't matter what their record is. The game doesn't know who's supposed to win the game on paper, right? I think the game is going to honor the team that goes out there and fights the hardest and executes the best and is locked in and is, and I think think that we have the capability of beating any team in the country when we come out and we are, firing in all cylinders. And, that's something that we're going to have to do. And it starts with the tone we set offensively in the first inning. I think that starts everything. We are very proud of our offense. We, again, have one of the best in the conference, one of the best in the country. And so we are going to rely on our offense to set the tone for the first game of that series. We get to hit first. Let's set the tone of how we're going to come out and compete against Florida State. And, I think that we have the offense to do it. Even though their pitching is stellar, we have the offense to go up against them and be successful. So we need to be confident in that, and we need to go in and set that tone.
Well, good, Coach. That closes out our preview for East Carolina and a tough FSU team traveling to Florida State this weekend. We wish you, of course, nothing but, success and good luck this weekend and tonight. Hardcore fans like myself and so many that watch this show, we hope to see some wins there, but we have your back no matter what. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our player spotlights, our favorite part of this episode. But I do have two other questions that are part of this player spotlight that is one of a player, but also kind of a team spotlight. Talk to me a little bit about this. This team as a whole is closing in on the program's home run record. What has allowed this group to generate that kind of power, throughout the lineup, so continuous throughout the year?
Well, I think we were able to bring in some players that power was a big part of, what they do or what they were capable of doing, and I think that the mindset coming in here and the simplicity of what we do in regards to offensive training and how we really approach things, I think clicked with those new players. I think Shelby, really got her feet under her and got some confidence at the end of the season and was able this fall to really gain a lot of ground in what she was doing. And that's why we've seen an uptick in her power numbers. I think it is just the simplicity of it and the work that we do and the work Coach Lyon does with the team, getting them prepared. We're not overthinking it. We're not overanalyzing it. We're not, trying to, we look at metrics and we use technology, but we use it in a simpler format where they can really kind of lock into it and be themselves through it and not try to cookie cut things. And I think that's really helped. I think obviously you add Emily LeGette and that's going to help, right? But I think we've seen everyone just raise their level of power by locking in on simplicity, understanding their body, understanding how they can generate more power and not be a gimmick or not have to change what they're doing. Just kind of be more comfortable with themselves and work with what they have and how they move. And I think Coach Lyon does a great job doing that and really individualizing things with each hitter.
Yeah, and what's so great is while some of them are seniors and this is their last year that are generating some of that power, for the most part, this is a very young roster that's performing at such a high level. So that's good to see. And I feel like, we should have a ding ding button or something, their sound go off every time Emily LeGette's name is mentioned. But that was the first one of this episode. So we did good in getting into this point and to mention Emily LeGette's name. But this second question here is about Emily LeGette. And this is an amazing accomplishment that she is on the horizon of. Emily LeGette is just a few home runs away from the program record. What have you seen from her approach that has put her in this position to reach that type of milestone this year?
Well, and I've said it 1,000 times about Emily. It's her calm, steady demeanor. She really understands herself as a hitter. She doesn't allow herself to get too high or too low. She is completely locked in and laser focused when you see her preparing for her at bat, on deck, and in the circle. It's funny. Coach Autumn and I, we stand in the dugout and we chart pitches and we, give information to the hitters before they go in. And honestly, sometimes with Emily, I look at her and I'm like, I'm leaving her alone. Like you can tell she is in the zone and I'm not messing with that, and I think that's allowed her to really, just have that confidence and have that that consistency, because she's so steady with everything that she does, and there have been moments where she's had failure, right? And there have been moments where she's kind of gotten outside of herself, and she's really quick to get back to that neutral. And I think that helps her. I think it helps her tremendously. And that's why you see her ability to be consistent with what she's doing. It's not just flashes, it's consistent offensive dominance that she's showing.
Yeah. And just, she comes from such a beautiful family too. I've gotten to know her mom and dad so well. We always get a fist bump in there. And, the episode I did with her, I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and were like, I did not but believe you or kind of her about that. She doesn't take practice cuts, on the, when she's standing in the hitter circle before she goes up to bat. And they were like, but she really doesn't take any practice swings. And that's just so, you don't really see that a lot. And so that's kind of an interesting, factoid there about Emily. So, man, I know we're so lucky to have Emily, and we get another year of her. I talked to her after the game, and I was like, "Hey, sorry about today." And she's like, "It's okay. We'll get him next time." And talking to her, I was like, "We're gonna have you next year." And I was kind of like, "Right." She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not going anywhere." So, but let's go ahead and transition to our other names that we have today. Is Raina Blackwell. I was talking to you a little bit about her prior to today's episode, and I've gotten to know her dad a little bit. He's always coming up to me after the games, and we get to chat a little bit. And I got to chat with her as well after the game, and just an awesome human being. Talk to me a little bit about her and what you've seen from her, as she's come to Carolina.
Well, Raina is just amazing. That picture you have of her, I think, is awesome with the crosses on her face. Mm-hmm. Faith is something that is really the foundation of who she is. And that when you're around her. And that's one thing I love about her, is that she's not afraid to show that and to share that. From the minute that we met Raina and talked to Raina after she got in the portal, you just feel this sense of like you've known her, and she belongs, like you just want to be around her. She's caring, she's kind, she's an awesome human being. And when we first started the process of recruiting her, she was actually down in Florida playing in the summer league with Sanaa. And we leaned pretty heavy on Sanaa, because she was teammates with her and working with her and got to know her really well. And we leaned on her, and because Sanaa knows us really well and knows, what works here and the type of player and person that we're looking for, and culture matters. And, Sanaa immediately was like, yes, I want her to be a teammate. She's amazing. And she is. And, we can talk about her softball part of it, but I have to start with talking about her as a human, because, that's what makes her special. The softball piece is something that she's great at, she's talented at, but, at the end of the day, Raina's special because she's a special person, and her family's amazing. And she is just a joy to have on the team. So coachable, such a good teammate. She has poured into this program as a leader, and she is growing as a leader. And that's something that's important for her to do, but it's also something that she is really taking seriously and working on her leadership skills. Being a catcher, that's an important part of your game, but not just on the field. She is taking the initiative to really work on that off the field and be a team leader for us. What she has done this season, especially in the last 3 to 4 weeks, she's our hottest hitter right now. She is definitely someone that has made a huge impact on what we're doing offensively right now. She has worked through a lot of adversity this season, worked through some rough patches, and she's come out and she is just on fire right now. And what she does behind the plate is huge. Defensively, she still strikes for us. She does a great job behind the plate. She's a big time player for us, but even better person. I love her. I love what she brings to our program. She's amazing.
Yeah, that she definitely was like art in motion, and of course it made it even better when the amazing media team that you guys have there all the time for the home games and also on the road is the bat flip, that they put in slow motion that she had this weekend, on that home run. Talking about her faith, I love how she just really is very bold with that, right? And I love that, she draws I'm sure you have noticed too, she draws the cross, in the dirt there before she goes up to before every at bat. So I'm thankful that she's a Tar Heel.
Same.
Cool. Let's talk about MC. What have you liked from MC? Coming into Carolina as well.
Well, MC is originally from North Carolina, and in fact, back when I was the head coach at Marshall, we watched MC play high school. We were super excited about her at Marshall, and she didn't give us the time of day at Marshall. She had different aspirations academically too. She ended up at Virginia, but we loved watching her play. Just a great player, great energy as a player. She was catching when she was in high school, and a great powerful hitter, which you see here. But ended up going to Virginia. And when we ended up here at North Carolina, and she ended up in the portal, man, it was one of those things like, hey, remember how much we liked MC before? And she's been at Virginia and done really well. She's high academic, great kid, great family. We should try to make this happen now. And I reminded her when we talked to her once she got in the portal, I was like, MC, you didn't give me the time of day back when I was in Huntington, West Virginia. And she kind of laughed about that. But MC's an amazing addition to our team. You've seen what she's added to our offensive lineup. She's got tremendous power. But I can talk about her just like I talk about Raina. Faith for MC is that's a huge thing for her too. And, she leads a prayer in the huddle before each game. She is someone that is active in Athletes in Action here, and is someone that is shares her faith with others and makes that a big part of her daily life, which I appreciate and love. And a great teammate, always a smile. She's invested so much in the staff and in this team, and just has become a part of the family so easily as a transfer. She's just a bright light, and I absolutely love having her around the program, not just because she can hit home runs and has this tremendous power, but just because she's family, and it felt like family from the beginning with her. And her father is someone that's really involved in softball. He has been a coach for a long time and runs a lot of camps and clinics throughout the country. And he's been fun to have as a part of the family too. And I've known him for a long time and respect him tremendously. So just a great addition to our family.
Well, good, Coach. Thank you for today. Thanks for, even though it wasn't able to take place Monday, we were able to make this happen on Tuesday, right before you travel to Greenville and then off to FSU. And like I've already said, we wish you nothing but, success. Anything else you'd like to leave us with today?
No, just excited for the week. It's going to be a challenging week. We're down to single digits in games before postseason play, which is hard to believe. But we're going to fight. We're fighting this week. We're going to continue to fight, and we're excited for the challenge.
Yeah, and I'll be honest too. This is my first year doing a coach or so. And, I know I've told you behind the scenes, I'm so thankful that, I feel like, y'all did, right? Just took a chance on me and gave us the opportunity here at Hills on Franklin to do this. And we're so thankful. And I will say that I know it goes by so quick for you, but when you're a fan on the outside, looking in, the season can feel so long at times. But I will also say that when you're covering it like I have been this year, it goes by very fast, right? Because we're prepping questions for this show that usually takes place on a Monday, those Sunday nights right after the game, and then it feels like you're just doing it all over again. So I will say, though, I've already talked with the boss, which is the wife, right? And I've been saving the money on the side to hopefully to be able to make it to regionals there so we can keep covering it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to mention really quick to everybody that's been tuned in to tonight's show. First off, just thank you so much for tapping in here for Coach's Corner. As always, do us a favor and, share this out, not only for Hills on Franklin, but for Carolina softball. Carolina softball means a lot to us here at Hills on Franklin, and we just want to see them just get the coverage that they deserve as a whole. And, also I just was able to sit down with Lexi Roberts and do our Inside the Dugout with her. So be sure to go in and go and check that out on YouTube and Spotify. For that episode, you can actually catch that video episode on Spotify as well. So do us a favor. This week we'll be posting shorts and reels on that. So share that out to help Lexi get all the exposure that she deserves. We'll catch you next week on Coach's Corner. And until next time, go Heels.
Go Heels.
Thank you for listening to Heels on the Diamond, presented by Heels on Franklin. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like it, drop a comment, and share it with another Carolina fan. That support goes a long way as we continue to grow. You can find all episodes of Heels on the Diamond on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. So whether you like watching or listening, we've got you covered. If you're looking for Carolina football coverage, be sure to check out the Tar Pit podcast, which you can also find on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. You can also find us on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search Heels on Franklin and you're in. Until next time, go Heels.